Hey everybody, I'm back and I apologize for the wait. It's been quite a long time since the last time I did a walkthrough video, but this time we're going to go through Face to Face, which is one of my other songs on Future Sound of Egypt. And just to let you know, we've just finished 3 days of partying in Bangkok, so I'm a little bit tired. If I come across as a zombie, you'll know why. The first thing that I want to talk about is the drums. I'll go through the drums, I'll go through the percussion, the snares. I've got everything all grouped up, ready to go, so we can talk through it. And as you can see, it's quite a big project. 106 channels. So we'll try and get through it, and hopefully this will be informative to you, because I know that you enjoyed the last walkthroughs that I did for Scent and Life in Trance and stuff like that. So first thing I'll talk about is the kick drum. So the kick drum comes from Vengeance. It's kind of like a Paul van Dyk sounding kick drum, mid to late 20, let's think about it, maybe like 2007, or 2008 kick drum. And I've got, you can see the MIDI here, triggering on the sampler. So the reason for this is that I don't want to have the full sample. I actually only want to play like, I want to try and minimize the amount of low end that's bleeding into the second half of the beat, because that's where the sub bass is going to be. That's why I've done this with the kick length. One thing you can do, I'm not sure if I talked about this in other videos that I've done, but I have, with the LFO tool, you put the LFO tool on the kick, and then you delete all this. And so you can see you turn this little button on here, and you can see the waveform. So this helps you kind of see where you're bleeding in. Like when you're using a sampler, this helps you see where you're bleeding into the next half. So you can see that I tried to minimize the amount of bleeding into the second half of the beat. So for example, if I used this one and I played the full sample, it would be going well into the next half compared to before, which was like this. So yeah, you can see how it works. So that's what I do. On top of that, there's the automation. Of course, automation is key. That's how you make your music have a lot more impact for the different sections. That's how you create anticipation, and it helps bring your music to life. So we've got volume automation to pull away the kick drums, or to perhaps help them get louder during the build-ups. We've also got the automation on the auto filter, or pulling down the high pass and low passes, so we can make the kick drum fade away. I'll show you how that works on the intro. So you can see how everything there sort of dissolves into the break, which is very nice. It helps you go from all that energy to the sort of serene, blissful breakdown because of how smooth the automation is. And just to point out, I've tried to fix the issue with the OBS, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to be today. Sometimes the audio seems to distort when I'm playing higher, like high CPU things. So if that happens again, I apologize. I'm still trying to figure it out. And if anybody knows, can let me know in the comments. So yeah, on top of the kick drum, we have the mid basses. For the mid basses, we've got a Psytrance bass sample, which is a multi-sample on the sampler. So you can see how I've got one sample assigned to each note. And then we've also got some mid-rollers just to help beef it up. The first one, yeah, like I say, it's a Psytrance. And you can hear that it's not actually it's not really got much sub to it. It's more just about that clicky driving element to it, piercing through on the 16th notes, which you can see here. Got them automated via assigning the level to the velocity. So this one here, assigning this part here, volume to velocity, meaning that I can change the volume of the sample just through the velocity instead of having to use like LFO tool or something like that. And for sidetrans basslines, that usually works best because it's sidetrans basslines themselves are quite a static element. If you've got an LFO tool, you might be bringing up the level of one of the samples too soon. So yeah, like I say, the volume to velocity is more of like a more clinical way of doing it. On top of that, there's the rollers, which I've got on a group channel. So we've got Zebra, we've got Silent, and I've also got some samples that I took from the ES2 in Logic. So I just took one note sample for this one, and then I just made it into a rolling bass line. So this is I think I can play it. Yeah, I've got it going through FabFilter Timeless, some EQ, and then I've cut all the bass out with Autofilter, which you could do anyway, with a like 24 decibel curve in FabFilter Pro Q. So you can do the same thing. And then that together is just like automating, I think octaves, not automating, MIDI on octaves like this. Cool. I've also got the next layer, which is this one. Two together sound like this. And then we've also got the Zebra. Just a little bit of work to pull out the low end and some of the little fuzzy bits on the top. Everything together for that goes through a Pro Q, which is just to pump up the mids, and then some LFO tool like this. And then finally this EQ, which I don't really think is going to do much because on the channels themselves, I've already took out most of the bass. But anyway, never mind. And altogether, those sound like another few. Yeah. They sound like this. And they're also going through a compressor just to help when those note changes happen and when the volume's going a bit all over the place with the LFO tool. The compressor helps keep it all nicely together. And then we've also got the Vitalizer. The Vitalizer helps add a little bit of the sizzle to the top of the bass lines. And it's also like got some other sort of inbuilt analog feel to it. And then another Pro Q to boost up the mids even more. The track's in B minor, so the more that you cut out from the bass in the EQ, when you're playing a high note, it's gonna sound thin. So it's important to try and maintain some of that lower mid, perhaps even keeping it in even more than I have. This feels like a bit too high. And then more LFO tool and more autofilter. Do the same thing to strip back everything for the transitions, make it much smoother and make it much more energetic and help everything have impact when it comes back in. And then lastly, the sub bass, which is samples from Activa, which we've seen in quite a few of my videos that I've used these samples for the bass because they sound really, really good. And I've got the EQ to boost on the frequency, the main key, which I said was B, and then the fifth above that, and then an octave above that to pull away the harmonics. And that makes it sound nice and warm. And that sounds great when it's all together. Everything's going through kick and bass bus that I've got. I've basically patched everything into this one audio unit so that they can just drag and drop quick access. And that's got a saturation. It's also got some virtual mix rack, analog feel, adding a bit of drive on the Brit N channel, and also some more compression from the solid state Logic, but also we've got the API 2500. And then finally more like a EQ compressor type analog VST 560. Everything together is going to the parallel compressor, which is on this channel here. And that contains more compression and some EQ. And those all together are what are adding a sort of meaty low end, but also crispy high end. And it's actually sitting quite low in the mix, so you don't really hear it, but it makes a lot of a difference when you export everything and you're listening to it. It sounds a lot more punchy, has a lot more energy. So altogether, it sounds like this. Also, going alongside that, I have the Paul van Dyk mid chugger, which I think I used it in Scent, and it sounds like this. And the reason why I call that the Paul van Dyk synth is because it reminds me of some of his mid 2000s records, where the bass line had like this phasing layer to it. So I just stick that in. And when you put that with the other bass lines, it just sounds really nice. I keep that. And then we move on to more basic things like stock sounds, 909 Crash. Just taken from Vengeance and reversed it. Play it like that. And that just helps all the way throughout. And for that one's quite simple. Just a EQ and reverb. And you can hear it's quite a long reverb. That's what helps make it feel trancey. You've got all that atmosphere and crashes and not too dry. Makes it seem really, really nice. For the percussion, got quite a few different elements here. First thing is this vocal cut. So it goes like this. So all the way through. And you can hear it quite well actually. Quite cool. And as you'll notice, the vocal cut itself is in B. So that means that when everything, like even the percussion is quite tonal, which is another important thing to do is to find percussions and snippets that actually are in the key of your record. Otherwise it's going to sound a bit off. So do it this way, allows like even the smallest elements to carry a tonal feel to it and create consistency throughout the mix. So not only do I have the vocal cut, but I've also got this this ride. Just a loop. Looped it up, bit of EQ, put a delay on it to help it bounce around in the mix, and then LFO tool help it duck when the kick's happening. Also got that hi-hat from Activa, which is quite snappy. It's not very long, which is cool. Got the 16th fast hats, basically like 909s. And then clap as well. Everything's really tight and snappy. It's not dragging itself along. It's quite cool. And underneath we've got this drum loop. And another loop underneath. And that's just organic element. And this was something that I was recently trying to explain to people, and it was you've probably heard quite a few people say this, including Jono from Above and Beyond. He says this as well, which is try to incorporate many organic elements into your records, because overall electronic music is very electronic, right? It's very synthesized and very, I don't know, it can seem sometimes a bit plasticky. So whenever you've got the opportunity to just inject a bit of real world into it, for example, like, well, one of the easiest examples would be like using a piano in the breakdown, or guitar. But like I say, even the percussion, try and get some natural, like real instruments into the percussion as well. And you'll find that these little things, they make a big difference to the overall feel of the track. And it helps make it sound more unique. I think if we're all using the same presets and we're all using the same samples, everything's just going to become one big sonic soup where everything's very similar. So if you have an opportunity to use something that isn't really trancey, then why not, you know? And with that, we've got them automating as well to help the transitions, so it feels smoother and feels more impactful when it comes back in. You've got the automation on the auto filter. Next is the snares. I've got two things that I like to do with my snares. I've got like a 909 snare, which I build up with the velocity on the volume automation to velocity. So you hear it get much louder and louder, right? Because I've got the velocity increasing for each sample, which was, I tell you what, that was a ball ache to try and set up. It's like, I don't even know if there's a shortcut to do it, but like each one I had to put in manually, like 51, 52, 53, 54, all the way until the end. And it was just absolute ball ache. And hopefully if anybody knows how I can like do this with one click, please tell me, but I never found out. And then underneath that as well, I've got this sample from Vengeance Ultimate Fills, which is like like a lot more airy. So altogether, you've got a really dry sample, and then you've got this really wet sample underneath. So the whole thing like punches through, but still has a bit of stereo-ness to it. Pretty cool. And they're just, you know, dusted around through the record to help build up tension and to help on the transitions, including in the main drop and during the intro and outro. And yeah, I think I'll play this for a little bit before I go into the effects, just to help you get a feel of the record so far. yeah, so there you go. I have to say, for a pre-master, this isn't too bad. It's actually sounds a lot. Sounds like it's ready to be mastered. Actually, doesn't even need to have a stem mix, but I got it stem mixed anyway. So as you can see here on the effects, we've got the usual stuff. I've talked about these before in other videos. You know, using effects kicks, and other little elements to use throughout your records. You can use the same ones because they're really like stock, and they're really just part of what we do in trance. Got the like this here, effects kick, then an alternative one, and then I've got all these like risers. All of these were used in Scent, I think. I think they're all the same. Sweeps as well, just a variety of different white sweeps that I'm just using on every record now. But I think instead of having it set up like this these days, what I've started doing is I've bounced everything out. So I've got all of my downs and all of my ups just all on one audio. So then it stops me having to do this. Like if like 13 channels all dedicated just to this, which just seems daft. So I've managed to streamline the workflow, but this is what it looks like. So you've got the up and down all dotted out throughout the mix to help with the tension and anticipation towards the drop. Everything's going through the LFO tool as well. It's just the same preset as usual. Got a riser, which I'm sure I've already showed you before. And for these risers, I was actually going to make a sample pack to I'm still thinking about doing it, to do a sample pack where I just export all of these from C through to like from C3 through to C5, and like exporting it through from the synth and then doing it in different waveforms. So you can get like, you'll have it in saw, square, pulse wave, triangle waves. And then I'll just put that up on my Bandcamp, and hopefully that will make the job easier for you guys as well. So I'm still thinking about doing that. So then you don't have to, like, you'll basically have like the essential risers that you need for your records. You just drag and drop. So let's see if I can do that for you. And we also have all these different hits. And I think these add a lot of character to the record, because without them, I think it feels a bit bare. So this one, yeah, if we look at these, they're like, let's have a look. Like this. Yeah, cool, right? Got tonal stuff, got hits, snares, percussion hits, like all this different stuff to make this atmosphere, which is really helping carry the tonality of the record. It's got a lot of energy. It's not too emotional. It's basically like saying, like, right, strap in, you're ready for a wild ride, you know? And you can see here I've used some tonal textures. One thing I did was I took, and this is quite a cool technique, is to have like a create your own vocal bed by taking a sample, for example, like a reverse sweep, and then looping it, just looping that one Looping that one part that you like, and then sticking some delay on it, and sticking some reverb on it, and you just get this like straight vocal bed that can sit throughout the mix. So that all the way through, and keep it quite low. You know, I've got it here at like minus 32 dB, so keep it quite low, and everything you stick on top, like decorating it, and it's just sitting there in the background. So let's see, you can hear it. Okay, can't really hear it there, but let's see at the beginning. Quite cool, right? I mean, I like it anyway. Next is the fills and the synths. And I think that the fills add a lot of character to this record because there's a bit more, it's quite a bit tonal. Bass shots, acid stabs, all different samples from Psytrance packs and Dave Parkinson packs. This one here, I find that's quite cool because it's got this, and it's got, and this one, everything together, pretty cool. Then another one, it's just like a little drum fill from Vengeance on top of another Psytrance sample, together with this, with the snare rolls and everything, and then this quite energetic. And then we have those are kind of dotted out throughout the record. But then there's also this one here, which has like a vinyl, like, and then scratching, which sounds like this. So, and then, cool. You imagine like with the kick and then that scratch, it's like somebody's mixing vinyl. So, yep. Just adds something different, something a bit more fun. During that part, and then after that we then sort of like introduce different synths. You can hear when I play it in full. So for the synths, quite a few different elements. I used a lot of hardware this time. I was using the TD3 by Behringer, and I was also using the Novation Peak. So on the Novation Peak, I have a few different parts. Novation Peak I used for the acid bass during the bridge. So it sounds like this. Which is nice because of how it moves in a sort of alien way. It's not like feel programmed. It feels quite. It's got a mind of its own. You can hear that when it drops as well. That's just got a bit of EQ. All the delay and all the effects are actually within the peak itself. There was nothing. I didn't have to add anything to it. And all of the like filtering you can hear is done by the LFO within the peak as well. So just like a case of putting in MIDI, sending it to the Novation peak, and just letting it record, and then just consolidating it, normalizing, putting it the, into the track. And with the bridge, it sounds pretty cool. Like I think it adds a lot of energy. Also from the Novation Peak was the main lead, but I will talk about that soon because I kind of want to go from top to bottom on this one. I've got the sub pad, the same one that I've used for many of my records. It's just from the Sylenth, which has some resonance bass and EQ and filtering. And you can see that I automated up the volume during that initial transition. So while all the bass and the kick fades away, the sub pad starts to come in, makes everything feel fuller, and it doesn't overwhelm the low end. So it's a nice smooth transition. Got the choirs, same choirs that I used on Scent. So we've got the first one, which is the bed choir from Activa sample, which you just layer and do like seventh notes. Sounds really nice and angelic. And gated choir, which is very choppy, is quite cool. All of that together. Makes me think of my like happy hardcore or like UK hardcore days. I was a massive fan of Scott Brown. His music has had a massive impact on me growing up. I was massively into the Bonkers compilation series, like all the hardcore, and that's kind of like the first time that I was really obsessed with the style of music other than trance. But happy hardcore and hardcore was also very important to my life. As his other thing, you know, I was a massive fan of Daft Punk as well. I was into everything, electronic music, just the whole thing's my life. And then so other than that, we've also got this little pluck, which I feel contributes something to the energy of the bass line. Actually, hear it here. I feel like it adds something to the bass line too. Felt like there's a bit of like a new energy Giuseppe kind of feel about it. And then underneath that, also automating. You can see we have the same philosophy of using the auto filters and the volume automation or the FO tool. All the same sort of things used throughout every channel. Create the transitions. You can see that we've got that as well with the ARP here. So this ARP is from Spire, and it's just sitting on top. And then change the bottom notes of the ARPs, then they follow the bass line when the bass line changes. Then next is the acids, which this time I used on the actual hardware for from the TD3. So I recorded these in with sending MIDI. I was sending MIDI to it and then recorded it straight into here. Got everything quantized. And then like kind of have to think of it as like auditioning the sample to find the one that you like a whole playing around. Like once you've found something, you can keep it there and then like move on to another one, then go back later and be like, right, at this point, this is when it sounded the best. So for this one, like this. And you can hear it's quite like thinned out because I have to put most of the bass. But on top of that as well, I've created like a custom send channel that's going through an H delay. We've got like the ping pong stereo delay. I've got like the dry signal here, and then I've got the wet signal here, so I can control it a bit more. Instead of sending it to a return channel, I just create my own little send with Ableton. I can just use it exclusively for that channel. And the reason why I did that, instead of putting the plugin on the channel and then controlling sorry, I just hit my microphone there. Instead of putting the VST plugin on the channel and adjusting the dry wet, I've instead took a secondary channel, put the VST on there on full wetness, and then reduced the volume on the channel. Just a different technique. And it works very well for this acid. And I've got that one, and then on top I've got a more longer moving acid, which I used actually played with the filter on the TD3. So that sounds like this. Yeah, like I said, once you've auditioned a part that you like, you just take that and you use it throughout the record. So I've got the same one. I just recorded them and then copy pasted it, the record. So you've got like that old school technique of producing with the digital as well, hardware and digital together. Then yeah, the main lead. So the main lead came from the Peak. One of the layers came from the Novation Peak, and then I've also got different layers on top from the VSTs. They're all playing the main melody. The main melody is quite simple one. This is the MIDI for the main melody. As you can see, what I've done is instead of having it based around a motif, I've based it around chords. So if you listen to, if you just, even without listening to it, actually, if you look at it with your eyes, you can see that there's not a lot of movement. It's pretty static. So just go B and F sharp, and then hold the F sharp, and then all the way up to A, while the bass line is moving through B, D, and F sharp. And yeah, you can see it works in like blocks, right? It's blocks that move from one chord to another, which kind of proves that simplicity is best, right? Because I don't have to draw these huge melodies that go all the way up like Koshek, Carte Blanche, or anything like that, right? I've just got this simple melody. It's like something that especially after writing this record, it was something that I thought I have to self-reflect a bit, right? And not overthink things, and maybe just make something simple that is catchy, rather than try to impress people with flair. So I did that in the VSTs, but on top of that, I also exported it. Like I sent the MIDI signal to the Peak and recorded in the Novation Peak. And I remember I played with the the cutoff, the filter cutoff on the Novation Peak to pull it in. So here it is. It's very nice. Quite thick, dense lead patch. And what I love about the Novation equipment is the filters. I've also got the hardware version of the D stage, and a very similar filter where it feels like watery filter, liquid. It's just lush, especially when you hear it at the beginning. Yeah, it's so cool. Very 90s. I like proper 90s fans. Very Corsten style, JP8080 stuff. And then alongside that, I've got the usual main leads that I've had on like Record, like Scent and Life in Trance. So if you like that one, you can go back and look at probably the Life in Trance video would be the best explanation for that one. The same thing, Sylenth and Spire and Zebra, 3 layers. And then with the record being in B, it was like you could sometimes be playing the melody too low in like for example, this here. Show you this. Right, it's nice, but there's something which I noticed that Billy Gillies does as well on his uplifters with Sound of Egypt, was to take that melody and then just layer it an octave higher and put that on a different super saw, or even put it in the same MIDI clip. Like copy your melody, paste it an octave higher, and it just makes it sound fuller, richer, and it pierces through the mix. So when you've got a track that's like this in B, instead of just having a melody that's too high or having a melody that's too low, put them both together stacked, and then it pierces through. So to do that, I took the leads from my record Sandglass with Renali, and I put them an octave higher. So altogether, that's when you've got something pretty cool, because you're covering a lot of frequency, really filling it out, and it sounds even more grand because you've got the higher octave and the lower octave together. So this is it here. Let's listen to how that comes in. Let's listen to how that comes in during the breakdown. Yeah. alongside that is, of course, the pads, which I think these are the same pads as I've got in Scent, or at least in Life in Trance as well. So those are your usual AP style and Juno pads, all from Silent, I think, or one from Spire. Yeah, it's like a phaser pad. And then Nexus as well for those Airwave saws, I think it is. Yep, Airwave Trance saws. And altogether they're cool. Like really thick and airy, but also have nice warmth to them. And then the last thing is the side pluck. So the side pluck is from Silent. I think that's the Danceology. Danceology. I use that in the intro, and then I also use it during the bridge, because the bridge was like the bridge is the place that I love to bring all the intro elements back together with a bit more bite, and then filter in the leads to go back into the next break before going back into the final drop. So you can hear it here coming in. Yeah, so that's the way that I normally do my bridges, and then go into the final drop, basically repeating the first one, and filtering everything out towards the end. Yeah, we've got that one. Basically, yeah, everything plays again, but pulls everything back, strips everything, pulls all the elements away, which allows the next DJ, or allows the next record to be DJ'd in, be mixed in. On the master, just a typical. I wouldn't say like this isn't the master chain that's used. It's not the mastering chain, but it's the chain that's on the master, and it helps me to produce because it livens up all of the mix, and it helps me to actually hear a more enhanced version of the record, and it's a lot easier for me to produce with it set up, because without it feels a bit lifeless. Because you kind of want to work while having an idea about what it's going to sound like eventually, but it's not really essential, but it's what I do. So that's Face to Face, and yeah, I really hope that the video has helped you to understand how this whole record is built up, and if you're interested in learning about like the presets that were used, or if you're interested to know anything about the elements that I've talked about, I'm happy to talk about it in the comments, because to be honest, I'm absolutely exhausted after the weekend. So like I say, if I've missed anything and you want to know more, can just ask in the comments. I'll be happy to reply because I reply to every comment. And yeah, hope you have a good day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Thank you for the support, obviously. It means the world to me. And yeah, let's meet up together, have another video very soon, I promise. Okay? See ya. Bye.